Om. 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 Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Bravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So Ganesh, will you chant for us this evening, since we have you in person?
Sure.
And does anyone know where we are?
We're on page 96, starting chapter 4 with number 1.
Okay, new chapter. How far along in the text are we?
We 2/3, between half and 2/3.
It says 59% on my Kindle.
All right, help us out, please, Ganesh.
Navahanam naiva visarjanam va pushpani patrani katham bhavanti dhyanani mantrani katham bhavanti samasamam chaiva shivarchanam cha. There is neither invitation nor casting off. How can there be flowers, leaves, meditations, and recitation of sacred texts? And how can there be worship of Shiva, which is identity and difference?
So we have here this idea of what is it that we worship when we do religious ritual? Now, for some of us, this is not particularly applicable. We don't particularly have the proclivities to do puja. But here the references are to the things that we do when we do a puja. So you have the Murti, the God, and then you chant particular mantras and you offer flowers or leaves, etc. Or you might do abhisheka, where you anoint the Murti with ghee and with milk and things like that. All those things are things we do to warm the heart, to kindle our love for God as we understand God. Those of us who've been raised Christian, we have our own rituals. We're soon going to be heading into the season of Advent. So we have Mary and Joseph and on their way to Bethlehem, and then later on we'll have Christmas with the baby Jesus, and then the three kings, and all these icons of faith, and all the stories that we have that warm our hearts, kindle our devotion. But in the end, all those are preparatory practices. And again, I've been talking about this text a bit in the past week or so, Narada Bhakti Sutra, where Narada says that the best of all devotion, the Parama Prema, the greatest love for the God, is the mind abiding, absorbed in the self. No need for flowers, no need for rosaries. Now, Swamiji always used to say that person is the greatest of fools who maintains the reality of their ego and then denies the reality of a personal God. If you think you're a person, and if you think you're a person especially who's got problems, then all of the traditions say, hold fast to the feet of the infinite. God as you understand God. And in Gita, Krishna says, in whatever way people approach me, so am I to them. Because in a sense, we create our own idea of the divine. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It works. It works. To surrender to God, to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. But when the mind has become Danu Manasaha, thin, then that personal sense of self evaporates, and the personal God evaporates. So rather than worshiping the Murti, the idol of Shiva out there, as Shankara says in his refrain in Nirvana Shatakam, Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of the form of bliss consciousness. I am Shiva. I am auspicious. Now, don't let philosophical inconsistency get in the way of your peace of mind. If you're having a rough time and you're identified, don't let spiritual pride keep you from going to the Lord for help. And if at other times everything disappears, Shivoham, Shivoham. Go with what works. Do not get stuck on intellectual consistency. It's not necessary. Any thoughts on this? I was working with a student yesterday. He came down all the way from Sebastopol. He sent me a message that he wanted to have some personal time with me. Oh, that's wonderful. So I said, well, why don't you come to the 10:30 class, the Upadesha Sahasra class, and we'll get together afterwards. Great. So it was a wonderful class. Then we went to lunch afterward. I said, so what are your questions? Well, they just all went away after I got here. So as we revel in the self, the doubts of the mind, they just melt. It's not that we get the answer to our doubts. The doubter disappears. All right, next verse.
न केवलं बन्ध विबन्धमुक्तो न केवलं शुद्ध विशुद्धमुक्तः न केवलं योग वियोगमुक्तः सवै विमुक्तो गगनोपमोहम्. The Absolute is not liberated from bondage and obstruction. The Absolute is not purified, cleansed, and released. The Absolute is not liberated by union or separation. I am indeed the free one, like the sky.
Yes. So this is a subtle point. What is it that gets realized? What is it that obtains enlightenment? What is it that gets liberated? It is not yourself. Truth is, you are already free. So I like to use the example of the fellow who goes to Las Vegas to a show in a casino where there's a stage hypnotist. He goes up on the stage and the hypnotist puts him in a trance and makes him think he's a chicken. He runs around the stage going, "Quack, quack, quack, quack." And he may think, oh, I need to stop being a chicken and become a human being. But his essence, what he actually is, doesn't need to change at all. He just needs to wake up from the trance. So the way Yoga Vasishta frames it, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. Now, we're dealing with two kinds of knowledge here. This is a secret. The first knowledge is the real knowledge. And that is the self-evidence, the self-effulgence, the self-luminosity of yourself. How do you know you are you? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, or smell, emote, or think yourself. Yet you know you are. Who knows it? I do. What's the means of knowledge? Me. What is that which is known, not as an object, yet not unknown? Me. It's me. And it's perfect. What do we mean by perfect? It's not something you achieve or acquire or attain. You always have it. Okay, who here's not realized? I'm not realized, Jim. I'm aware. Do you know you exist? Yes, I know I exist. What's your existence like? Oh, I'm very miserable. Do you know your misery? Yes, I know my misery. So even the fool thunders, I am, I know, I shine. But in the mind, there's this phenomenon of superimposition, yes. What is my bondage? As the result of the deep hypnotism of spiritual ignorance, I'm convinced I'm the body, or the body plus the personality. I'm a person, Jiva Bhavana, and I have all these problems. I'm not in the right home. I don't have the right partner. I don't have the right job. I don't have the right bank account. I don't have the right friends. My body's too fat. My body's too skinny. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. Going on all the time. The suffering. A person who's identified with the body. Is the self identified with the body? No. The identification takes place in the mind. In the mind, I attribute to the self the qualities of the not-self. There is no other moksha, no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction that I am Brahman. How do I get it? Do the preparatory exercises, the viveka, the vairagya. And in that quiet mind, investigate. Who are you? Well, I'm Jim. I think I'm, this guy. Well, really look. Subject-object discrimination. Look, who are you? Chidananda Rupa. Wait a minute, I'm not the body. I'm not the feelings. I'm not the thoughts. I am bliss consciousness. Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. And that aha that occurs in the mind is the transformative factor. It is the human mind that has the transformation. The buddhi, the subtle intellect, becomes buddha, awake. What the Buddha, what his name means, it means the awake one. But your self-nature is not changed. But your understanding of who you are profoundly changes. Now, our beliefs are very powerful. I was thinking of the fellow who testified before Congress with the January 6th committee. And he had been one of the oath keepers. And he, in fact, had been drawn into this cult. And he had all these beliefs there were lizard people, and Hillary Clinton was drinking blood in the bottom of a pizza parlor, and there was Jewish space lasers and all this business. He believed this stuff to the point that he was willing to commit seditious acts. Now, after they arrested him, and he was talking with the FBI and stuff like that, they convinced him, you've been duped. You've been duped. Or the fellow who broke into Nancy Pelosi's home and hit her husband on the head with a hammer, convinced that all this stuff was true. Not true. Doesn't mean it isn't powerful. So we don't want to underestimate the power of spiritual ignorance. But how do we remove ignorance? Through investigation. Find out what's really there. Now, ignorance is so tenacious that sometimes we're slow learners, and we need to keep hearing the truth over and over again, and then investigating our own self-nature over and over until we're really convinced. And if we're fortunate, Nirvikalpa Samadhi may dawn on the mind. That can be a very powerful and transformative mind state. And the mind very clearly is convinced. I'm not a person. But the goal is not nirvikalpa. The goal is knowledge of yourself. That's where we want to focus our attention. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Investigate. Find out who you are. Then all the practices, all the rituals, scripture, the guru, bondage, liberation, all those ideas gone. Does Brahman get realized? No. Is Brahman in bondage? No. They're just ideas. Don't believe me. Look. Go there. Take these verses as a hypothesis and prove or disprove them. Laboratory of your own direct experience. Any thoughts? Next verse.
Sanjayate sarvamidam hi tathyam. Sanjayate sarvamidam hi tathyam. Evam vikalpo mama naiva jatah. Swarupa nirvana manamayo maham. I have developed no false notion that all this reality comes into existence, or that all this unreality comes into existence. I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
So, there is a particular stage of our sadhana for some people where I can go deep into meditation. I understand the no thingness of myself. But when I come out of meditation and I go into the world, then I start having problems again. And at one level, we get the teaching, okay, sarvam kalvidam brahma, all this is verily Brahman. It's mithya, the names and forms, they're a conditioned reality. The infinite has spanda, it just vibrates, it's all just vibration held together by thought. Here the verse is saying that the deepest understanding is nothing ever really moves. And with verses like this, I'll frequently bring out the crystal ball. Crystal ball is one homogeneous mass of stone. If I show it to you, you'll see images in the stone. Now, have the images come into existence? Is the stone the cause of the images? They just appear. It's an optical phenomenon. You can't cut open the crystal ball and pull out the images. There's nothing to be afraid of in the world. We were talking before class about virtual realities. That's a very good metaphor. So when I was at the museum, they had the total immersion virtual reality of Ramses II and stuff like that. So you're sitting in the pod chair. It looks like you're in the tomb. And then in the Seti I mortuary temple. And then zooming out into the stars and stuff like that. So space and form is all being created. Or is it? Seen, but not real. Now, vivid enough that when the images started to spin, my tummy went, oh, like that. And I got a little bit of vertigo. That's how vivid the illusion was. It was a pretty vivid illusion. Nothing is created, nothing is destroyed, no one is born. It's funny, I think of the Bodhisattva vow. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattva vow is where I vow to not enter nirvana until all sentient beings are liberated. The number of sentient beings is infinite. Ah, but for the man of wisdom, do you see any sentient beings out there? No. Kevala. There's just aloneness. What is nirvana? It's not a place. It means blown out. all our strivings cease. Next verse.
Asanjanam chaiva niranjanam va Rachantaram vapi nirantaram va Antarbibhinnam nahi me vibhati Swarupa nirvana manamayoham. Stained, stainless, divided, undivided, differentiated. None of these appear to me. I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
My form, what's he say, Swarupa Nirvana? What's he say?
Swarupa Nirvana.
Yeah.
Manamayoha.
Yes. My form has been blown out or extinguished. So all these ideas, the mind of the person of steady wisdom, it's hard to think of thought. And if thought arises, she doesn't take it as real. And because there's no reality to the name and form, the kama is gone. Burning flame of desire, struggle, etc. It's gone. I have no form. It's not that I have to get out of the body and be free from reincarnation. Like I like to say, do you incarnate into a dream? Are you in the dream or is the dream in you? You go nowhere. Dream does not touch you. Next one.
Abodha bodho mama naiva jato bodha swarupam mama naiva jatam nirbodha bodha cha katha vadami swarupa nirvana manamayoham. It has not happened that I, the ignorant one, have attained to knowledge, nor has it happened that I have become of the nature of knowledge. And how can I say that I have both ignorance and knowledge? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
Yes. So, at one stage of our sadhana, Shankara says, become a mumukshu, a seeker after liberation. In Gita, Krishna says, by all means, O Arjuna, become a yogi. And while we're doing sadhana, ego's frame is, I want to become liberated. I want to become realized. I, the ego, want to disappear. All sorts of ways of framing that the goal is some transformation of the ego, and the ego will be there in a new or different state. What the scripture is saying is, We keep wearing down the ego till the ego is gone. The ego never arrives. To try to be a realized person is like the person who's getting ready to commit suicide and says, I can't wait to be there in the church and see Aunt Mary's face. Oh, she's going to know all this is her fault. And I'm just going to be just gloat seeing how unhappy she is because I'm dead. Sorry, sir, you won't be there. Likewise, that jiva bhavana does not survive. Gate, gate, param gate, parasam gate, bodhi subha. Gone, gone, gone completely beyond. Fully awake. Wow. The best pictorial illustration I've come up with. Imagine here's the self and here's the ego. And it wants to struggle. It thinks, I've arrived. I'm a realized person. That's not what happens. Ego's here. Oh, I'm struggling for liberation. I keep rubbing off all the attachments and identifications until, oh, look inside, look behind your eyes. You see a realized person in there. What's there? Chidakash, the space of pure awareness. Is it realized? You can say the self is always realized. It doesn't become realized. The mind gives up its stupidity. Shankara's classic image. Imagine the funeral pyre with the ego on it, the corpse of the ego. And you have a stick. That stick is your mumukshutva, your burning desire for liberation. You keep stirring the funeral pyre to burn up the ego. But in the end, you give up the meditator. You give up the mumukshu. You give up the one who wants to be real. Next one.
Adharma yukto, na cha papa yukto, na bandha yukto, na cha moksha yuktah, yuktam tvayuktam, na cha me vibhati, swarupa nirvanam, anomayoham. It, the self, does not appear to me as virtuous or sinful, as bound or liberated, nor does it appear to me as united or separated. I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
So does your self ever undergo change? Maybe it does. Deep meditation, look within. Oh, Jim, I looked within and myself was pink this morning. You saw the pink? Oh, I did. Kathopanishad, it says at the very end, meditate on the self like a flame the size of the thumb in the heart. Okay, I'm going to visualize my heart. I can see a little flame. That's the self. That's an upasana for grosser minds. So-and-so, they obviously aren't realized. They're me. No, maybe no. Oh, so-and-so, I think they might be realized because they're so nice. The self is beyond virtue and vice, good behavior, bad behavior. My form is extinguished. There's nothing. Next verse.
Para paramba nachame kadachit madhyastha bhavo hi nachachari mitram hita hitam chapi katham vadami swarupa nirvanam anamayoham. I never have the high, low, or middle state. I have no friend or foe. How shall I speak of good and evil? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
So many of the scriptures talk about three classes of jnanis, the high, the low, and the middling. Tripurara Hasyam does, Yoga Vasishta does, which frankly have to do with the experiences of the realized soul. Listen carefully. These are all karmic. They're not to be achieved by mere will or effort. If you're making efforts to achieve a state, you're not even a jnani. You're a stupid ego struggling for some mind state. The mark of the person of steady wisdom is they could give a rat's ass about what stupid mind state that mind is in. It's none of their business anymore. It's all the Lord's. They're nirvana, blown out, extinguished. Now, the sadhu, the person of wisdom, may be seen to meditate, does not add to their self knowledge. They do it because they enjoy it. It's a worldly pleasure for them. But they're not trying to get something. Next verse.
Nopasako naivam upasya rupam nachopadesho nachame kriya cha samvita swarupam cha katham vadami swarupa nirvanam anamayoham. I am not the worshipper or of the form of the worshipped. I have neither instruction nor practice. How shall I speak of myself, who am the nature of consciousness and free from disease? My form has been extinguished.
So, what this kind of recognizes, we need to look at all of our motivations for doing sadhana. Frequently in the beginning, oh, I want to live a better life. I don't want to suffer so much while I get about the business of living. But then as we go deeper, we find these attachments get subtler and subtler. Oh, then I'll be just a little bit better than everybody else. I have ambition. Maybe then they'll love me. I'm an unlovable creature. If I'm realized, maybe then people will love me. Oh, they'll touch my feet, pranam to me. I'll be able to put them in altered states, get them high. All of these need to be seen and renounced. So there's nothing. Ego is wily, it is cunning, and it will use the path itself. Next one.
No vyapakam vyapyam ihasti kinchit na chalayam vapi niralayam va ashunya shunyam cha katham vadami swarupa nirvanam anamayoham. There is nothing here which pervades or is pervaded. There is no abode, nor is there the abodeless. How shall I speak of void and non-void? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
And again, all these spiritual ideas. Again, it depends on where we are in our sadhana. When Swamiji started to do his jnana yajnas, his camps, that's a term actually borrowed from Gita, it means a sacrifice to knowledge. When he would go to a town and he would do a camp, then the people would say, oh, what should we do while you're gone, Swamiji? And he said, we'll set up a study group. Get together, revise, review these scriptures, and discuss among yourselves. The discussion will sharpen your understanding. It will reveal your doubts. This is called mananam. In fact, he had the Chinmaya Mission publish a magazine that was called Mananam. Think about it. It is an essential and useful stage of our sadhana. Shravana, Mananam, Nididhyasana. But at some point, it's all just blah, blah, blah. We give it up. One of the words we have for a sage is a muni. Comes from the same root as maunam, which means silence. The great sage Ramana Maharshi, after his realization, he goes to the temple in Tiruvannamalai, lives in the crypt shrine. He did not speak for, I think, 11 years. What is there to talk about? I remember one attendee at the camp came up to Swamiji and said, Swamiji, we need to talk. Swamiji said, what is there to talk about? Talking is stupid. All these ideas, is it void, is it not void, is it full, blah, 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 blah. Practice unknowing. Next one.
Nagrahako grahya kameva kinchit nakaranam va mama naiva karyam achintya chintyam cha katham vadami swarupa nirvanam anamayoham. There is no one to understand and nothing indeed to be understood. I have no cause and no effect. How shall I say that I am conceivable or inconceivable? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
So it's not so much that we get an understanding of it all. We quit asking the questions. Second chapter of Gita, Krishna says, he who knows, knows it not. She who knows it not, knows it. Meaning, I've studied all of Vedanta. I've read all the commentaries. I know all this stuff. Don't know. But then the chela, the student whose mind just stops. He who knows it not. Next one.
न भेदकं वापि न चैव भेद्यं न वेदकं वा मम नैव वेद्यं गतागतं तात कथं वदामि स्वरूपनिर्वाणमनामयोऽहम्. There is nothing dividing, nothing to be divided. I have nothing to know with and nothing to be known. How shall I then speak of coming and going, my child? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
Yeah.
Did he freeze or did I freeze? Sorry.
Give up knowing, figuring, understanding. Words fail us here. How many more in this section?
About 13.
We'll do another, some more.
न चास्ति देहो न च मे विदेहो बुद्धिर्मनो मे न हि चेन्द्रियाणि रागो विरागश्च कथं वदामि स्वरूपनिर्वाणम् अनामयोऽहम्. I have no body or bodilessness, nor have I intelligence, mind, and senses. How shall I speak of attachment and detachment? I am free from disease. My form has been extinguished.
So again, these practices in our preliminary stages of sadhana, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I'm the witnessing consciousness. But the practice of discrimination in the end just goes. The person of steady wisdom is rooted in this knowledge. Again, Ramana Maharshi uses the example. It's like for an ordinary person, they never question whether or not they have a human body. They do not doubt that they're a goat or a cow or a horse or a pig. It doesn't occur to them. So also for the person of steady wisdom. They never think of the forms as I am this body or that feeling or this ego. It's all just Nama Rupa. It's all just the play of the Chaitanya, play of consciousness, mind. I'm the untouched witness of it all. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. All right, one more, and then we'll put a little lyrics.
Ullekhamatram nahi bhinnamuchaihi ullekhamatram natirohitam vai samasamam mitra katham vadami swarupa nirvanam anamayoham. The self is not separate or high, and it has not disappeared even to the extent of illusion. Friend, how can I speak of it as identical or different? And free from disease, my form has been extinguished.
So when you finally get it, you see you can't lose yourself. Yourself is never covered up. When are you ever not you? Then it becomes the most obvious, the most present, the most real thing. Always there. Changeless, birthless, deathless, without a taint, without movement, without an end. Beyond all dimension. Vast and empty. Ch.4. All right, we'll end a little early tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.